Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Well, get right down to it. I'm going to teach you today how to build a door similar to this. It's a pretty easy construction, but I thought as I'm doing these projects I might as well start making videos about them. Okay, so the first thing I do is I measure my width. So what is my closest width here? So if I go ahead and I run a dimension here, might be hard for you to see, but I measure to the stud inside about 20 inches. So what I'm going to do is come back about 1/4 inch to allow for a free swing in the door. So 19 3/4 at the bottom, and then always come up and measure your top. Same thing. Pretty square, about 20 inches, so I'm going to go 19 3/4 here. Come on the board, 19 3/4, speed square, right on the edge there, strike a line. Always try to use your fingers at the end or put them up against the stop block. Make sure they're pretty square and flush on each side. So there's our 19 3/4. So now what do you do? If you don't know the size of a 2x4, they're not really 4 inches, 3.5 inches. So go ahead and take a measurement just to verify. You got 7 inches of 2x4. Alright, here we are at a rough opening. And what I'm going to do is take my dimension from my tightest point. If I had a 21 1/4 high door at the end of it, that would be perfect for my door build. So I know that I got to be a 21 1/4. Alright, so if I cut these at 14 inches, I know that I'm going to have the right amount of rise to give me the proper size door. Okay, so what I like to do is lay out the orientation that the actual door is going to be set in that rough opening. And this is the basic build. And this is where using a quality saw comes into play, and marking off everything with a speed square, because you want to make sure everything's nice and square like this. And this is a farm door, so I'm not too worried about sanded edges or anything like that. So I know that I wanted to be, my target size for this door opening is 21 1/4. So if I just take some rough dimensions, get 21 1/4 and 21 1/4 on that size, you know, so measure twice, cut once, they say. So that's going to be the orientation of how this is set. Now, what I like to do for all this type of joinery is you could do this a bunch of different ways, but the way I like to do it is with one of these, a Craig jig. So what I like to do is make my pocket holes on the riser side here and here, and then attach. So let's get started on that. These are the two sides that get drilled, the side that does not, and the Craig jig uses a special bit that comes with the kit. You'll break these about every 4 projects. This tip loves to break off, so get yourself a couple sets of these bits. But basically, you set the jig to your right plunge depth, and you guys can read the manual on how to do that. I'm not going to go over that in this video. Basically clamp that down like this, and then I run 2 pocket holes, one on this side and then I flip it, 2 more, and what that's going to give you are holes that look like this. So let's get a focus on that. These. So do it again to the other side. And you can clamp this down to your bench if you're always going to be using it, but I hand hold it. There we go. So there's your risers. So let me vacuum this up, and then I'll show you how to lay this out. Shameless plug. This thing is awesome. I love this vacuum. Nope, Not sponsored by Makita in any way. I just love their tools. I think they make a quality product, even though some of the stuff's made in China. This is a really good vacuum. It runs on 18 volt. You can go ahead and you pop open your little cover here, throw a 4 or a 5 amp hour battery in there, so it'll run the whole time you're trying to do the project. And the thing just kicks ass. Brushless motor, really love it. You're going to need for this these, if you're using a Kreg jig. These are Kreg 2.5 inch pocket hole screws for, well, 2x4s. That's what they look like. They kind of look like a Tapcon, but they're not. And they have a proprietary Kreg square drive here. See if I can get that to focus there. Anyway, square drive. So you're going to need to use a long square drive bit. Don't try to do this with a short bit, because when you get into putting the screw in, it's going to try to run the impact gun against the 2x4. Also, for extra measure, you don't have to do this, but I recommend doing this. I always try to wood glue all my butt joints. It just gives it a stronger, I guess, durability. So I run a little bit of wood glue here, just a little bit, not a lot. You don't want to go into pouring out everywhere, just a little bit like that. I'm going to lay this down, and you want to make sure that your workspace is square. I have a metal lip on this tool bench, or this workbench here, so to give you an idea. I'm pressing against the metal lip, and I'm checking for flush on this side with my finger. And get yourself a pocket screw, and these are, don't try to do this with regular deck screws, because you'll run right through the pocket hole. Run them in slow, and you'll feel it kind of suck up. Just like that. You don't have to go crazy with them. Take the other one, do the same thing. And it'll square it up nice. Do the same thing on the other side. Bring this around. Just like that. That are set. Take it, flip it around. Be careful with it until it's all put together. Do the other side. There we go. Now you should have a nice frame. So you could actually take this and make picture frames for your house. Just like that. Nice and flush. Got a good bond, and then once that glue dries, this thing's not going anywhere. So that'll last for a long time. I built my chicken coop like this, and the doors are still solid as a rock. So, alright, let me show you the next step. So what you want to do now is get your body frame set up to where this is going to hold the recessed plywood. So probably can't see it very well, but this is a big old 1x6, big stinky 1x6 scrap that I had lying around that'll do the job perfectly. And basically what's going to happen is you're going to measure again the exact size of the length of these bottom boards, your longer boards. 19 3/4, 19 3/4. Cut your 1x6 to 19 3/4, and then take your dimension, and what you're going to do is put this together like a picture frame with an air nailer, and then that's going to make the frame for the plywood. So let's get started. Draw a nice little line on there. Alright, here's the new boards that you just cut. Make them, put the nice sides out how you like. And I like to use the back of my bench as a square edge to push against. And that's going to be the bottom frame. And then now what we will do is take a measurement between here which is 10 inches and 10 inches. That's how it's going to fit together. It's going to give us a nice little picture frame in here, and it's going to look nice and purty. So before you start your assembly, gather up all this stuff, push it over to the side, grab your wood glue and give it a little, you don't need a ton, just a little bit, kind of give it a wavy appearance. And then now you can start setting stuff in place. Don't mind the phone that keeps going off every 10 seconds. Alright, I like the knot out. It gives it character. And really what you're doing is just checking for flush. You can do this with a speed square or your hand, either way. Like that. Make sure everything looks nice and square. And when it does, it takes a little massaging. Get yourself a little one of these. It's a little 18 gauge nailer, I love it. And what you want to do is start with the bottom rail. Just tack it. Tack it there. Put the camera back so you can see it a little bit better. Tack that one down. And let's get that nice and square. Don't worry about that, you'll fix that later. Let's get a little bit of warpage. This is old scrap, so the exception of the 2x4, none of this stuff is new, but that's okay. Nice and square. Okay. They should have a cool, you could even use that as a picture frame if you wanted to. Now let's get into the plywood recess that's going to go in here, and this is kind of what makes it look real cool. Here it is flipped over, and take a rough dimension. This doesn't have to be exact. I got 12 3/4 right to the edge, so I don't want to go that tight. So I'm going to go 12 1/2, and I got 14 right to the edge, so I'm going to go 13 1/2. And I'm going to make a cut. So 12 1/2 by 13 1/2 plywood. Okay, you can do this a couple different ways, but I love using a T-square. This thing's awesome. Helps you make nice straight lines. And you can also do your marking with it. So we're gonna go 13 1/2. Make a mark. And I always come up here, check 13 1/2 up here. And then go ahead and strike a line. Actually, that's not a square line at all. So take it from this side. It's just an old piece of scrap. First thing we're going to do is make a rip cut down this side to give us our 13 1/2 inch side. Now I know that side's not square, so I'm not going to use it. So we're going to come up 12 1/2. Okay, and that gives us our cool little insert. Okay, since this is scrap and it's going to get painted, I don't really care what side faces in or out, so we'll just make that side face outward. So take and line it up, drop it in, make sure it fits nice, which it does, pop it back out, and try to get into the habit of this. Use a little wood glue. It just makes things last a lot longer outside, trust me. Like that. Drop it in. Which direction was I at? There we go. There we go. And it'll kind of snug up nice. Make sure it's nice and square. Then get creative and flip it up. Throw a nail in it. Here, there. Once you know it's going to be, you probably couldn't see that, but once you know it's not going to fall out, I just kind of held it in place and tacked it. Just go along the edge. For my chicken coop, I actually use deck screws just because they're going to be opened up and closed a lot more than this. But you'll notice now that that's squared everything up here. Now, if you're making this for a finished piece inside the house, go ahead and get a random orbital sander and go ahead and run along the face side of this and make it pretty if you were going to do that or if it was going to be a frame. So now the only step left is to now go take this and dry fit it, which is what I'm going to do off camera, make sure it does fit in my opening, and then I'm going to show you how to do the cool little X that everyone seems to get tripped up on, and there's a pretty cool trick I'll show you. Alright, I tried to get the best top-down angle I could here. So, make the X, which is something like that. It confuses a lot of people. I know that it confused me when I first started, and it's a lot easier than it looks. So, everything's on the same plane. So, what you want to do is this X needs to reside inside of this recess. And you can't just simply cut a board this long and cut a plank this long and lay them in because they overlap each other. So there's a couple of complex angular cuts that you can get away without having to spend all day trying to calculate the angle with an angle finder by just simply laying it up. So the sides of this angle I want on this plane. So when you're laying this out, don't put this piece up here and this piece on the side or here. You want to make sure that they're on the sides of each area. This is going to give you an even X and not something that looks out of whack. So you're going to lay, and I'm looking down here at this corner, and I'm looking up here at this corner, and I'm making sure that these bisect exactly. And once I have those in place, now if you could bring your imaginary saw, you'd want to saw this up, and you'd want to saw, can't really see this side, this direction here, and cut this area out. So take a speed square and try to get your head over the top of it, and what I'm doing is I'm taking my eyeball and I'm looking down this line of the speed square. So let me bring you in here. Take my speed square here, I'm looking straight down the top of it, nice and aligned, and I'm going to make a line, just like that. Put a line there. Now, go to the other, don't touch this, make sure you don't knock this out of whack, but go to your other side, and you're going to do the same exact thing. It's going to be difficult with this tripod here, but you're going to get a nice line, and you're going to strike a line, just like that. Now, that's where you're going to make your cuts. Right there. So cut it there, cut it there. I'm going to go do that, come right back. Alright, if you cut it right, it should fit in there nice and snug. You shouldn't even need any wood putty. This board's a little out of whack on this side, so you could wood fill that or sand it. But that's your first piece. Now, second piece, same thing. You're going to pay attention to your sides when you're laying this out. So what I'm looking at here is making sure that this bisects perfectly on that side. Bring this down. And that bisects perfectly on that side. So now, again, and what you could do for extra measure, since this is a complex cut, is tack it on the scrap side so it doesn't move. Now you can easily lift that off. So now that it's tacked, everywhere you see a bisecting piece of wood is going to be a cut. So lay this out again, speed square, make a line. That's the first cut. Come back in here. Second cut. Third cut. Fourth cut. Here, 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 and here is where you're going to cut it. So you just pop it off. And if you got any of these little nails that stick out, you can pull them out, or you can take a nipper and just nip that off. So let me go cut these now. Okay, so if you did it right, you're going to have two pieces that look like this, and are not going to make much sense, but if you remember how you had it set up, you take your time laying it in. One will pop in like that, and one will pop in like that, making a super cool X. So now note where your X is. Put your pieces to the side. Get your glue. You just need a little bit. Lay that in there. And this type of setup can be used on anything. If you're building gates or doors, anything that you want to do the X pattern in, that's the best trick to do it without using an angle finder. You want to make sure everything fits nice the way you intended. I hate this side, by the way. That board's annoying. Normally I pay attention to my nailing pattern and make sure everything's equidistant, but I really don't care for the application that's going to be in. So, alright, if you did everything right, there's your door. Nice, solid, sturdy door. Ready to take on the world. So now, the only thing that's left is to get this thing hung. Best hinges for these are the typical Home Depot hinges. They give you a bunch of screws. These hinges here, just a standard strap hinge, T-hinge, whatever you want to call them. And the way I lay these out is I try to get the hinge side, I can't see that good, of course. I take the hinge side, the round area, and you could do them like this if they're going to be multi-swing, swinging out or swinging in. But what I do, since this is a pretty tight application, is I move it in to where the barrel of the hinge is pretty much on the ridge. That's going to give me a nice tight fit. Then you could measure, if you haven't done this before, but I pretty much can eyeball this center of where this is going to go, and then you're going to run your Phillips head in there. I actually hate Phillips head screws with a passion. They're terrible. All they do is slip. I always try to use T20 or T25 head screws when I can, but it's what comes with the kit. So just when you run them in, don't go crazy on them, or else they will strip. And then they look like crap too when you see a busted out head. Key to all this is just to keep a good firm press on the gun. Like that. You could also pre-drill these too. I want to note that. Go around to the other side. also make sure that these are perpendicular to the edge, or else you'll have a door that's wanting to close on you all the time. Okay, there's your hinges. Ready to go. Okay, so if you did it right, you should lay in here exactly how you planned it. Just like that. And the only thing left to do now is to set these hinges to where everything moves freely. Now this is going to be hard for me to do without a cameraman, so I'm going to get this set up on how I do it, and then I'll show you the summary. Okay, easy. So what I did to hold this where I needed to get it to obviously not catch here at the bottom where my trim is, or up here at the top, and make sure everything is flush. I've actually used these a million times. These are just regular old pencil sharpener erasers, and I stick them, I lay the door like this. You can see down here. I lay the door on top of them just like that, but backwards, inside the building on each side, here and here. And I attach my hinges, and then once I'm done doing that, I pull them out from the back side and I get a nice free swing, which is exactly what I want. So now the only thing left to do here is to put a latch up at the top of it, so when you throw it closed it actually latches, and that'll complete the project. This is a standard latch kit you can get at Home Depot. It's just a regular old throw close and lock gate kit, so I'm going to take this out of the package. Alright, the first thing I like to work out is where the actual latch is going to go. That's going to determine where the striker goes. So if you take the kit and just kind of lay it up, I like when everything looks nice and even and centered. So you take that and you put this imaginary striker on that side, and that'll be perfect. So what I'll do first is attach this, and you can always, I always recommend a pre-drill, honestly, but this wood is so soft that it wouldn't really make a difference. And again, if you're working with Phillips, be gentle. And then just align it the way you want it. You tighten the other side down, it'll suck this nice and flush. Just like that. Run the rest of them in. That. The only thing left is the striker. And I think I already lost a screw, which is good. So this, get it set just like that. That's how it's going to lock. And I always try to make sure that there's nice space around the whole thing before I lay that out. So, gotta be creative. Get the screw ready to go in your gun. Little bouncy. Got a bouncy latch. It's one of those ones you can pop open if you keep hitting it. It's alright. It's good. Perfect. Alright, now I just gotta find the other screw. Nice. Managed to find an old handle laying around in the barn. It's ugly. Needs a paint job, but that'll happen when I do the paint job on the whole building. Simple. Sell these at Home Depot. They're like $4. Just like that. Mismatched screws, but it's all scrap. All stuff that would have just gotten thrown away, forgotten about. Now I have a functional door. Okay, so in summary, made this door, put some hardware on it, works well. So now it should provide years of opening and closing and storing lumber, which is what I'm going to use this for. Could even serve as a makeshift chicken coop. So I just don't like the bouncy hinge side. Some of these that you get, if you push on them too hard, it actually flings the latch open. So that kind of sucks, but hey, it's $4. So that's it, guys. Thanks for watching.